Classic Plus is literally happening just a bit differently, and the Season of Discovery seems to just be the early stage. All dungeons are being turned into raids with us getting the Scarlet Monastery, and even more interestingly, Blizzard had pledged to use old unfinished zones that are going to be added over time to the game. For example, this Karazhan crypt that has been abandoned and never finished will be built as a new dungeon or a raid with new NPCs, bosses, likely a new storyline as well. However, that is just the start. They're gathering feedback on what people want to see, and WoW has a ton of these unfinished zones in the backlog. So we got the almost completed Mount Hyjal that never made it to the game, we got the unfinished Azshara's Crater battleground that never made it to the game, we got Kalidar, Dragon Isles, Emerald Dream, and a few more zones that could potentially make it in this new version of WoW Classic, meaning that even if you're not into Classic, you might want to see what is going to be coming to the game. If you wanted to explore the universe and you're a fan of Star Trek, there is no better experience than Star Trek Fleet Command, an award-winning MMO for mobile NPC. As a star-based commander on the edge of civilization, you can recruit iconic characters, build mighty ships including the famous USS Enterprise, and dominate the galaxy. Best of all, this is a multiplayer game, so you can forge alliances, choose factions, defeat your enemies, conquer territories, and explore new worlds on intergalactic missions. Star Trek Fleet Command is completely free, and right now is the 5th anniversary, so until November 28th there will be a ton of giveaways, contests, and events, so it has never been a better time to become a leader or a member of a mighty alliance. Make sure to use my QR code on the screen or the link below, and also use my special promo code WARSPEED that is also available on the screen. Just click the link in the game, go to player profile, setting, general, and at the very end, sign up for a Scopely account. Then on the official website, click the store, log in, and access promo codes, and claim your rewards. Once redeemed before level 10, you will see them in the game, and all new players will get 10 epic shirts of Kirk. So check out Star Trek Fleet Command. You have probably heard about this Classic Plus League that everyone has been talking about, with playable ogres, new zones, a whole bunch of features like starting WoW from scratch, and instead of us going to TBC we would get a new storyline and we would continue into a brand new timeline of Warcraft. Well, obviously this was fake, but sort of half fake. Classic Plus is definitely happening, but not as radical, and what seems to have been done now is this new Season of Discovery, which is like the early stages of this new Classic Plus, meaning that the announcements are yet to come. This is like setting the ground for what is to come. Blizzard has confirmed that we will be getting new content added to the old game, which is huge news, but it probably won't be a new main storyline or a new expansion as we had originally anticipated. At the time, there was a lot of talk about huge news about Warcraft and BlizzCon with Chris Madsen, and most of this hype has really just been about the ambitious 3 new expansions and this World Soul Saga that no one really saw coming. But Blizzard has not actually forgotten Classic, and what they had announced on BlizzCon is really just the start of things that we should soon expect to be announced. So to very quickly sum up what is happening, this new Season of Discovery seems like the testing ground or the beta for Classic Plus potentially. Essentially, this is a new way to play World of Warcraft, like legit, something they had never done before. The end game level is going to be 25, meaning that it won't require a huge time investment, and the whole end game is just completely changing from the ground up. For example, they can transform the Black Phantom Deeps from a dungeon into a brand new end game raid with brand new bosses, new mechanics, new loot, which is pretty exciting news, although nothing that crazy, but it means that new content is being crafted and added to the old game, something we don't really have on retail. We're getting a ton more features with this rune engraving, where you're going to be collecting runes, and also all the classes are kinda going to go crazy as well. Everyone will be able to do a whole bunch of other class roles, which is definitely going to be quite experimental. However, that is not really the most interesting news. What is super exciting is that this is just a start, meaning that they will slowly be increasing the level cap from 25. We still don't know how and up to what level or how it is going to work out the timeline, but imagine it's sort of like mini expansions, like patches where you get these new raids and everything and then move on to the next stuff. For example, a huge focus of Season of Discovery is going to be on Ashenvale, and it is now turning into like this huge open world battleground. The difference is that it is not going to be an instance battleground, but an open one with new mounts you can get, new activities, and it all lines up with the story perfectly, as at this time the Horny Alliance were in quite a struggle, so it definitely makes sense. Now, they have also promised new outdoor content as well as new world bosses that are going to be constantly added. However though, as the level cap slowly increases, they said this, which is huge. As they're going to see how things are progressing, they're leaving the door open for new experiences by using previously unfinished or unused zones and dungeons. This, in my opinion, is the biggest bit of news, as this is essentially what Classic Plus is, not just experimenting with new gameplay, but actually making this sort of into a new game, not just a travel back in time to play Classic, but something that kinda happens parallel to retail. Now, if WoW has anything, it has old and unfinished zones that could be incredibly interesting new content. The entire premise was that this new season of Discovery is meant to experiment. They don't really want to promise too much too early, they want to observe the feedback, so at this point it is crucial, as I'm pretty certain like they can do this on the fly, like they don't really need all that much work to reuse old zones, so they want to see how the community feels and what is popular, like what people want to see. Now on BlizzCon, they had actually hinted at 3 new bits of content, but remember, there is like 10 more they have in the background that they can use at any time. So through the images they had shown us of BlizzCon, we had seen Nomragan and the Scarlet Monastery. In my opinion, this seems like it is going to get the same treatment as the Black Phantom Deeps, as in it's going to be turned from dungeons to raids, to very likely getting new bosses, new mechanics, some changes. Most interestingly, we might be in for some new storylines that could justify this happening. I mean, keep in mind, this is back in the day, so radiation was still a huge problem in Nomragan. The Scarlet Crusade was near the peak of their power here. Right now, when you think of the Scarlet Crusade, you imagine them as all but destroyed, but back in Classic, they were packing quite a punch, and they were a significant local threat, so getting something new with them could be huge. However, the most interesting thing they had shown us are the Karazhan crypts. Now, if you're not too familiar with what this is, you might think, I mean, who cares, like, not a big deal, but it actually is. Like, see, right behind the Tower of Karazhan, around the cemetery, lies this massive crypt, which is essentially a whole unfinished instance serving about zero purpose. However, originally, it was obviously meant to do something, as it is not only big, but it even has this really creepy vibe to it. I would say this way too dark vibe might be what had gotten them to back off it, like originally for marketing purposes. Like, we got bodies of sinners laying upside down, there is a huge pile of bones called the Pit of Criminals, and the entire thing is just incredibly dark, like it has this really dark setting. They never fully explained what this actually is, but it was thought to have been a testing ground they had used, or an instance that ended up being half finished and then just abandoned. Now, the big news is that this is actually coming in Season of Discovery later down the line. They actually showed us the picture on BlizzCon, so it is not speculation. They had hinted that it will become a dungeon or a raid, which means that they're literally going to create a brand new dungeon from nearly scratch from these half-abandoned bits, which not only means a new storyline, but new NPCs, new bosses, and essentially it is like half a new zone. Now, of course, these are the confirmed changes, something Blizzard showed us on BlizzCon, but there are actually a ton of similar instances that exist in WoW Classic build that have never ended up making it to live, and they hinted at using like these things that they have in the backlog. So let's take a look at what else we could actually be expecting, as I think some of these could be even more interesting. So we've had this battleground that was nearly finished called Azshara's Crater, and it was meant to be around the southern Azshara, like that part of the zone. It was actually meant to be very similar to Alterac Valley, but then Blizzard realized they need to actually focus on balancing the actual Alterac Valley, and this ended up never making it to live, probably because they didn't have the resources to finish it. They wanted to add it in Rat, then even add it as far as Mop, and they just never ended up doing anything with it. I would say, seeing how finished this actually was, and the fact that they're adding all this new PvP content in Season of Discovery, it could mean we could be getting Azshara's Crater, maybe as an instance, maybe as a new open world PvP content, but this is one of the most likely new bits of content. Other than this, we had a few zones that have never actually made it into the game, despite being half finished. We've had the Emerald Dream, where originally Blizzard promised a lot of things with the Druid. It was supposed to be like this big thing, but it was like half developed and then completely abandoned. Nearly 20 years later, it made it into the game in Dragonflight, and because of this, I don't think it is highly likely that they're going to add this entire zone. However, this Emerald Zone might not become a new questing zone. It could turn into a raid or a dungeon, or could be related to what has been going around in Classic at the time. So this could legit be a patch or something that could be happening. Similar to this, we had the Dragon Isles that were almost entirely built, and it was supposed to be like this old god place, but personally, due to the fact that we had just gotten the Dragon Isles, we had just spent 2 years here, and that the original location was meant to be somewhere entirely different, I don't see this being added as a new zone, as it could become a significant problem to actually justify it. However, it could be possible that they could reuse some of these assets or to create something brand new out of it. Other than this, originally Mount Hyjal was nearly entirely built, and it was actually quite different from what we had gotten back in Cataclysm. We had a world tree with the actual bones and the remnants of Archimonde, and it was not burned as it was in Cataclysm. This could entirely be used together with the Emerald Dream stuff. Now, of course, we don't know what they plan to do. So far, they seem to be interested in turning old content into instances, but seeing that Season of Discovery also focuses on open world bosses, open world PvP, some of these could become like new battlegrounds potentially. Like Mount Hyjal could become new content. It could even be justified in the lore, like this happened prior to Cataclysm, like this Horde Alliance skirmish. Additionally, it could of course be an instance, a potential raid or a potential dungeon. However, other than things that eventually made it into the game, we have one that didn't, that was actually quite fleshed out. So we have this really interesting battleground called Kalidar. It was meant to be on the same isles where Teldrassil is, and the map was actually fully fleshed out. It has this strange MOBA layout, like with the lanes and everything. We don't really know why it ended up being scrapped. I'm thinking they might have ran into trouble with the location of Teldrassil and what has been going on with the Night Elves. However, it did seem interesting enough, and I could see this being added as an actual instance later down the line in Classic. Now, other than this, we got a few more sort of like small isles, assets, and things that never ended up making it to live. For example, we know from a recent interview, Blizzard went in to make a pirate expansion with the Pirate Islands and everything back in the day. This was meant to be the first WoW expansion, but they couldn't figure out like how to make water actually work. Now, I'm not saying we're gonna get WoW Classic Pirates, but I could see them maybe bunching up some of the old assets or creating new instances out of all these old, scrapped, and unfinished projects, which could legit be exciting times. It means the Classic is no longer just traveling back in time, but we are getting brand new original content being added to it. Thank you for watching. Check out 3 new patches coming to Dragonfire by clicking on the screen, and check out my video on ancient Greek colonies in Spain by clicking on the screen as well. See you next time.